Hi,
Nice
Monica.
to
So
see
good to see
Yeah,
you.
you too. Good to see you too. So lovely to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you, Shay.
Welcome back to Jigglin' Juices in Conversation with. I'm Georgia Took. This is Shay Miles, the other half of Jigglin' Juice. We took a little bit of a hiatus this summer, a little summer holidays. So we haven't done one of these in a little while. But I am so thrilled to introduce our next guest, Monica Liu. Monica and I have been friends for actually so much longer than we thought we were friends for. Like we were talking about this the other day. Turns out we actually met each other on our very first day of university, because we were in the same dorm room. Not dorm room, sorry, dorm building. Old pool residence. But then, so Monica went into art history. I went into visual arts. So we were kind of parallel, but we like kind of crossed a little bit. Like we took a few courses together, I think. But then this past spring, Monica was working at the Victoria Arts Council and curated a show, and I was so honored that I got to be a part of the show. So we got to kind of rekindle our friendship recently. But there's so many things that I want to talk to you about this episode. If you want, you can introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us where you are right now in the world and what you're up to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Georgia. I'm so honored to be here with you and Shay. I'm so excited about it. So yeah, like you said, I finished my undergrad in art history at University of Victoria, and then I kind of like took a little break to just like work a little bit, and now I'm in the Netherlands. I'm in Europe. I'm going to the Leiden University. But I'm currently living in The Hague, so like the city of peace and justice, apparently. Yeah, fancy. I'm also doing my master's in art history, but it's called like arts and culture here, with a focus on museums and collections.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Are you enjoying it?
I have to say it's a little bit different than what I thought it would be. Like I feel like European academia is quite different from North American ones. I don't know if you and Shay and Georgia, I don't know if you've ever like compared this before. But in my opinion, like European academia is a little bit more, I want to say it's a little bit more elitist.
Interesting. How so? Do you want to elaborate on that? Like how like
Yeah. Well, at least I think in the Netherlands, in my opinion, because like their educational system is very different. So like for what we call like bachelor's degree, they have what maybe in North American version would be like a college, but they call it like HBO and MBO. So those are like more skill-based college. And there are 4 years, and then after you finish it, you just go into the work field. Like you do not continue studying, basically. And then there's university, which you can also go to for your bachelor's degree, but then that's set up for you to go into master's. That's kind of like a natural progression for people to go from like a university to then a master's degree. And then after master's, you can continue to go into internship, work, or like PhD. So the difference between these two branches is that for HBO MBO, it's very practical. So you spend a lot of hours working on campus, and when you go home, you're done. Like you don't have a lot of readings, you don't have a lot of homework, and then you're set up for work field. But for university, I talked to this classmate of mine. She told me that they were taught to write as opaque and as hard to understand as possible in undergrad.
oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah, so the whole field is just kind of it's not very healthy in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that sounds like so draining to kind of have that set as the standard. And it's actually quite interesting because that is literally what like Georgia and I are trying to like break down in the art world with Jiggle and Juice. So that's like so interesting that that's actually being pushed. So yeah.
Yeah, I was quite surprised when I first got here too, because in my opinion, like, well, from what I knew before, like, the Netherlands is like a very free thinking country. It's very open. But apparently, yeah, they were, in their undergrad, they were told to just follow the rules. Like, they're not able to choose even their own like research topic if it's outside of the framework that the professors provided you.
Oh my.
So I was very, very, very surprised.
Yeah, no wonder. Oh, that's such a shame that you like went with an expectation that wasn't actually realized. That's a shame.
Yeah, it's not too bad though. I think it also. Oh, sorry. I think Georgia wanted to say something.
Oh, no. I think I was just gonna say that's a lot for you to adjust to too. Like a whole new place, a whole new country, a whole new like way of university that you have to kind of navigate.
Yeah, I think it's just very different. Like I wouldn't say like I'm sure. I don't know. Their style is what they're used to. So when I tell them about what happened in Canada and like what we're encouraged to think, like they are kind of like also not super kind of like interested in it. They're just like, oh, this is kind of like how we do it here, and it's more like highbrow almost. Like it's more, yeah.
Do you think that is there a part of you that kind of would like, I can't think of a better word for rebel right now, but like is there a kind of part of you that wants to kind of like counteract that, like as you're
every day?
Really?
Every
oh my god.
Day.
Okay.
I've kind of been struggling with school recently because I'm not the kind of person who would want to do something that you told me to do. Like I came into master's school with a very clear goal, like this is what I want to do and this is what I like my thesis would be like. And then I was told that it's not possible. It's like you have to like pick a supervisor that can actually like fit with your style. So
it's such a shame because it's like so far from what art like how you would expect to work in like a creative field would actually go. Like that is.
Yeah, I'm very surprised because I'm doing arts and culture, and there's actually a lot of people with a fine arts background and even like science background in my program, and they're all kind of like, yeah, this is kind of how it goes. Like it's always been like this, so I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, so but I have this conversation every day. Like whenever I have the opportunity, I always tell people like I'm not super happy with it, and I think they're just kind of like tired of me complaining.
Like it doesn't have to be this way.
I know it doesn't have to be this way, and I know a lot of people are not super happy with it. They're just not vocal. They're not very vocal about it. Yeah, which is a shame. Yeah,
that's really interesting. I remember like I feel like that kind of has to do with what. Or at least what you were telling me you wanted to focus your studies on in your master's, which was like art in protest. Is that still kind of your focus? Because I feel like this is kind of like, it could be like your protest.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the interesting thing is I still want to pursue that topic, but because I can't really find a supervisor, so I have to kind of like mold it in a way that I can fit into other people's, like another supervisor's like field, but still talk about art and protest. So right now I'm doing like museum memory and identity, and how like the site of the museum itself can be used as like a site of protest, and how that shape our cultural identity.
Okay, so is this kind of, you were saying there that you're picking something different, but then kind of like weaving it.
I'm trying to maneuver my way into like.
So what was your initial intentions with the kind of like theme of art in protest? What did you want to explore? What did you want to convey with that?
So initially, I did my undergrad thesis on the Hong Kong protests in 2019. So I was focusing on the power of visuals in like eliciting pro-social behavior, because I have a little bit of background in psychology in undergrad as well. So I was kind of exploring this intersection between art and social sciences. So I had this goal going into master's, and that's what I kind of wanted to do. So it has remained more or less the same. Like my area of research is still this particular like topic. It's just I'm going to change it to like a museum setting.
Okay, and that's you have to do that because that's like
the institutional constraint. It's like it's really funny because I'm talking about institutional constraints in my thesis, and I'm having to like adapt to that in while I'm doing my research. So
whoa, that's like so meta. Like having to work. Yeah, totally. I feel like you're gonna write a really good paper, like, at the end of this, and it's gonna be published, and everyone is gonna be like, whoa, we're gonna change all the schools. So I think you have some really good things coming your way.
I feel like everybody's just like, oh, look at this, like, girl coming in, like, trying to change things. Like, I'm sure they're, like, all kind of, like, weirded out by me, but oh well.
That's okay. That's what brings about social change, is, like, the one person that's like, this doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good for you. Oh my gosh, that takes a lot of courage. And that's, yeah. And like, you've only just started your first year, just the beginning of September, right?
Yeah, it's only been like a month.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I don't know why I thought you were like, well, like you were quite far into it, but yeah, that's like so much to have unfolded in the past, like in the first month.
I know, yeah. Well, it's really intense. Like, I don't know if, Shay, are you doing a master's or you're...
No, I'm not.
I don't know if is it only 1 year too?
It depends, I think. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes they're 1 year here, but sometimes I think I think it depends on the qualification you want to go for. But right. Is yours 1 year though?
Yeah, I'm doing a 1 year.
Right, so it's like just super intense, yeah.
Yeah, it's really intense. So like that's why I feel like a lot of things has happened, because we were already asked to like determine what your thesis kind of like your topic is, and then you have to like contact supervisors, and you already are doing so many things in like the first month of grad school essentially. Yeah. It is quite intense.
Yeah, I didn't know it was only 1 year. Oh my gosh, you have a lot of stuff to do in that short amount of time.
Well, I was very excited. I was like, oh, I can get it done in 1 year, and then I'm like ready to go, you know. But yeah, it's a lot more than I was expecting. Yeah.
What do you want to what is your like goal after you've graduated? Like, do you have a like, what do you want to do next? Have you thought that far ahead? Like, it's okay.
Oh God, it's such a question of the century. I feel like I always feel like I knew what I wanted to do, but right now I'm a little bit unsure, because like moving to a new country, and there's like the language barrier, and when I looked into like a lot of the job vacancies here in the Netherlands, they do require you to speak Dutch and English, just because everybody speaks English anyway, so it doesn't really give you like an edge. So, but I would like to work with like a artist-run center or like a non-profit organization, because that's what I did in Victoria, and I really liked that field.
Oh, I think that's great. And that's actually a really good segue, because I wanted to ask you about your time at the Victoria Arts Council. Like how you got into that, what your position was there, and like what you've kind of learned from it.
Yeah, I've actually been with the Victoria Arts Council for a really long time. Like, when I first got to Victoria to do my bachelor's there, I started volunteering for the Victoria Arts Council just as like a gallery sitter, because I'm very into art. And then I think after a year of gallery sitting, the previous directors just asked me to become like a part-time worker, to just like help them coordinate volunteers. And then Kagan, who is the current director, came to his position, and then he brought me on as like almost like apprentice, I guess, like a curator apprentice. So he started giving me more like projects to work on and like curate my own show, and then that like wonderful show that we did together, the one about intersectionality, like that was one of my bigger projects. Yeah. So I've been there for a really long time. I feel like that's kind of my first serious job. Yeah.
That's so sorry. I just think that's such like a lovely way to like progress in like the art world, like to kind of go from I remember being encouraged to like go and invigilate for shows and stuff, and that just kind of proves that if you do sort of get your foot in the door with some of these places, it can actually be really worth your while. Yeah, well, I think that's very important for, I think, artists to know as well, that
you might start on something very small, like a very trivial role, but you never know where it's gonna lead you, right? So don't think anything is like too small or too like below you or anything like that. Just get out there and like try different things, you know, like get to know the people in your community, and you might just build some connections.
I love to hear that. That is so inspiring.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the people I met in Victoria, like a lot of immersion artists, they don't have that kind of high horse mentality. Like they're very down to earth. They're very willing to just do whatever, get their hands dirty. It was very nice to see.
Yeah, totally. I feel like I think one of the detriments with like Instagram is like you think that your art community is like the whole world, and so you're like, I want to like get to like several thousand followers and get several thousand likes and like be in all these different places and get like shows other places, but like I really think that we need to like look more locally and like look at your arts community like right in your own city and like make connections with people who are like in your city. And I feel like there's so much you can find really close by, and it's like so much like richer connections that you can make like in person here, like in your own place, than just like some like random on Instagram. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you would have a bigger impact on the people around you just by starting like locally and then reaching out to people maybe from like a wider area, like, but you can actually make a difference in your own community. I think that's very important. Like people, yeah, of course it's good to aim high and aim at the international stage, but you know, I think it's good to just like start locally and then like spread out.
Definitely. I think that that's something that's like quite daunting for me. Like I've gotten quite used to being kind of behind a screen and like having conversations behind a screen. But I think that like real life things are quite daunting, but at the same time I think that I'm quite bad for not replying to people or kind of like saying, oh, let's have a conversation about this, and then like because you're behind the screen you don't really have that. But whereas if you make plans with someone IRL, you kind of have to be there, or you're gonna like stand someone up or disappoint them because they've taken like that time out of their day. So I think that there's like a little bit of a, for me personally, there's a bit of like a little kind of like a twofold there, but definitely think that it's so worth it to especially if there's an organization or like a startup or some kind of a group of people that you feel kind of share your values, and you kind of think that you could bring something really positive and they could give you something really positive back. I think that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a question for the both of you, I guess. I know you both do like performance art, right? Yeah, so what do you think that this role of internet, like do you think it alienates you from your audience, or like what is your take on this?
I think that I feel safe, like I just said there. I feel safer. I feel no. I mean more like I feel like I'm just gonna repeat myself, but I feel safer behind a screen. Like the work that I was doing was quite intimate and provocative, and something that I maybe wouldn't really want to do in front of people. In real life. Yeah, and then I feel like if I can kind of like do something and then just like close my screen and then like, you know, cook some dinner, like that is really, really, really attractive to me, rather than like, you know, maybe doing a performance and then having to like go back out to the people as Shay and like get a drink. Do you know, I think that element of it is really like exciting and really kind of like alleviates the pain of like, or pressure, I guess. But Georgia's been doing some IRL performances recently.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
have some better insight than me.
It's sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you how it went, because I saw your Instagram and I saw your like performance in real life.
Yes, it's so different. It's so different because like all my performances in university were just like video pieces. So I would like perform, have the video, and then have the TV on the wall. So it was almost like a painting where I was like, here's my thing. that's over there and you can go look at it, and I'm like over here. But then like being like in the space like as the character was like so scary. Oh my goodness. Like but just I honestly like incomparable. Like it's such a different feeling to like be there in the space and have people like interact. I think half the time I'm like thinking like, is this crazy? Like am I like, is this like, oh, but then there are these moments where I'm like, oh, like I feel very like in the performance, and people can like are in the performance, and it feels like this really like interesting connection that you can kind of go away from and be like, whoa, like something interesting just happened there.
I'm very curious. Yeah, sorry. I'm very curious in terms of like how people reacted to your performance in real life. Like, because I'm very interested in like audience and art like relationships. So I was just wondering like how did they react? Like, did they try to talk to you? Did they like respect your space, and how did they react?
Well, so I've done a couple. I think the most like the one that had like potential for interaction was the one where at the show Pearlescence there was like an upstairs like apartment space that there's a few performance artists in. So we had someone who was topless painting in the bathtub. It's like, so she was kind of in the bathroom, and then we had someone like sitting at a table, and they were people could go up and like sit, and they would like paint the person's nails and then like have a conversation. So that was like a very like interactive part. And then we had another performer who was like on this like phone, like this like corded phone, and was like kind of talking. So that one wasn't really interacted with. And then like for one of them I was like writing these little notes and like giving them to people. And it's just so funny, like in a performance space so many people are like can I interact? Is this like, can I look? Like there was one where like at one point I was like lying on the bed, and some people would like come into the bedroom and like look at me lying at them, and I would like make eye contact with them, and they'd be like, I'm not looking at this crazy bird lady on the bed. That's crazy. And then I would look away, and then it was almost like permission for them to like look at me again. But it was just like some people would feel like they could not even enter the bedroom. They would kind of glance and be like, whoa, that is private. I can't see that. And then walk away. And other people would like come in and they would like have eye contact with me. Some people would like sit down on the chair and just like be with me. Like one person was sitting there for like 5 minutes just to like share this space with me, which I was just so surprised by. Because I wasn't really like doing much. Like there wasn't a lot of action, but it was just like holding this space. But yeah, so interesting. It's people like, I feel like performance arts is just like gives this space for us to like look at people. Because I feel like in our society we're like walk down the street, blinders on, we're not looking at anyone. I'm in my own little world. Don't perceive me. But yeah,
it's almost like as an artist you're also giving the audience a visibility. Like you are interacting with them and you are recognizing they're there, instead of just being like, I'm seeing you as like a passive part of my performance. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we had a show at the VAC hosted a show that was like kind of based around performance art like about 2 years ago. And what was really interesting was we had this group of performance artists coming together, and this was not planned at all. But during their individual performance, they started to merge and interact with each other and starting to like perform together. And it was so organic, like it felt very natural. But yeah, a lot of the visitors, but I can tell that they're just very confused. They're like, oh, is this part of like, are you a performer? Can I also joining this like this movement? Yeah, but it was all like part of, I think it was so beautiful about it. It's just like, it's kind of inviting, like you can join them if you want. Yeah,
like so enticing. Like I feel like there's just something like so like romantic about performance art. Like I remember like Shay and I have both like in our early school years completely fell in love head over heels with Marina Abramovich when we first saw her. Of course, I feel like it's a rite of passage as like a performance artist. But like I don't know, there's just, it is just like a space where it's just so different. Yeah.
It's very interesting because in art and activism, if you look at that field, a lot of the artists who are working in protest are performance artists. They're not necessarily visual artists. Most of them are actually out on the street doing something, making a statement with their action. So I think it's very interesting. It must be because it's just so enticing, like you said, so exciting, and people are just naturally attracted to someone who's making a loud movement, a statement. Yeah, it's very cool.
What do you think the link between that is, like performance and protest? Like, do you think that it's because it's like it doesn't matter if you're an artist, if you're actively participating in a protest, are you in some way like performing? Like what do you think the link is between the two there?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Like, I was taking a class called Art and Earth, and we kind of discussed this. Like, at what point a person becomes an artist activist, or at what point a person's just an activist? And we couldn't really reach an agreement, but I think it's mostly subjective. Like, I think it's just how you position yourself. Like, if you want to identify as like an activist and you don't consider yourself actively producing something that would be considered art, then a lot of people would identify with activist. But I think from like an outsider's view, from like my point of view as a scholar, I consider a lot of people who don't consider themselves as artist activist actually as artist activist. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I know what you mean.
I think it's like a very blurred line. It's very interesting to explore, for sure, that like gray space.
Do you have a favorite like piece that would maybe fit into this conversation?
I'm not super well versed in performance art, but during my research on Hong Kong protest, I have looked up a lot of great artists, and there's this one person who made this flag to resemble the Berlin Wall, or like the Lenin Wall in the Hong Kong protest. So he made this flag that has like the color of all the sticky notes, and then he just like brought the flag down and waved around and joined the group. So that was very moving, and actually the Hong Kong protest got a lot of attention from artists, which is really interesting to see. Like, it's a very rich field to talk about art and protest because they use so many visual elements in their protest tactics. There's a lot of art that came out of that protest. So
why do you think that is?
I think it's part of their the most important thing is globalization, because a lot of artists in Hong Kong protests actually made their painting referencing like classical Western art. It's very, very interesting. So I think their goal is to reach a wider audience. Like, they want to appeal specifically to Western audience from a democratic country, to as a sign like, oh, please help us. Like, you would recognize this motif, you would recognize this iconography, so you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's a painting that referenced liberty leading the people, and it was such a strong message. Like, anyone from a Western context would understand what the meaning is, and hopefully that will elicit action.
That is so interesting, because it's almost like that shouldn't have to be not that that's not authentic, but like it shouldn't have to appeal to, or what do you think is that an important part of it? Like, should it appeal to a Western audience in order for it to actually because I don't really know much about this at all. Right. So what do you think? Do you think that kind of like dilutes the message, or is that actually like a really important part of making it impactful?
It's quite complicated. I think a lot of the artists during this protest are not really concerned with authenticity, because their goal is to reach as many people as possible via a visual platform. So the situation is, if they use like a Asian iconography, Chinese people, like people from mainland, would recognize it, but they wouldn't do anything. The only people in their mind that would do something is from a democratic country, which would be like Northern Americans or Europeans, that kind of population. So I think it's very tactical. I think it's more of a strategic planning of the artist to use these motifs to appeal to people. So yeah, I think it's more like, it's almost like you're at war and this is the strategy you're implementing. Yeah.
So in essence, it's really smart then.
Yeah, I think so, because if you look at the media coverage that came out of that period, a lot of major like outlet like CBC, BBC, like The Guardians, like the major outlets covered so thoroughly of the protest. So it worked. It grabbed global attention, and it definitely worked. But it worked to the extent that it still didn't like escape from the Chinese government's control. So, but it definitely got people to talk.
And what you're saying is that art and visuals had a massive impact on that then.
A very, very large impact on that, yeah. So a lot of the visual artists, a lot of even journalists had such a impact on it, because there's a lot of photographs that came out of that protest that are just like heart-wrenching. Like it's just like war, like in Iraq, or even, you know, the visual imagery that came out of 9/11, or like Katrina, like Hurricane Katrina, like that kind of level of humanitarian crisis, like it will definitely get your attention. So yeah, art definitely played a very major role in that protest.
And so is this kind of conversation, is that the kind of thing that you're trying to write your thesis about in a very
in a very convoluted way? I think, yeah, that was the kind of the main idea. But I was also wondering how long this effect can last. Like a lot of the, you know, media moves so fast, like the next big thing, they're gonna grab onto it. So it definitely aroused some kind of like emotional responses from people, but it didn't really last that long. So my thesis was kind of exploring how powerful art can be in terms of eliciting this like pro-social behavior, this empathetic response from people.
Right. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And because of my interest in art and activism, I really want to see like what is impractical can it be? Like what can we actually do with art? Yeah.
That's so amazing. I feel like I just got like, the whole time you're talking there, I just got like shivers. Like I'm like, oh my God, art can like do so much. And I'm so looking forward to reading your thesis.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, was there anything like that, Monica, like you wanted to like, I mean, normally we have like artists kind of plug their Instagram.
Oh, I see.
Or is there anything like that maybe you want people to look at? Like, I know now I'm going to do my research into the Hong Kong protests in 2019. Like, I would really want to look into that. Is there anything like that you want, like any action steps that you want to give people? Any like last words you want to say?
It's a lot of work for someone to look into a topic as heavy as Hong Kong protests. Like I know it's very hard, and with everything going on in the world, like COVID is not over and people are protesting about vaccines and there's war still going on in Israel and Iraq. It's a lot to ask, but I think it's very important to remember to just be kind. It's a cliche, but be kind to yourself and be kind to people around you, and just don't be an asshole. Like, I don't even gonna say that. Just start small, you know, and support each other. It's very important for artists to come together, I think, to support each other, not to put a peg down on other people. And we're all in this together. You know, it's day by day. Yeah, just be gentle to yourself.
That's so lovely and so true, and such a lovely way to round off such an amazing conversation. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and like Georgia says, I really want to do a part 2, so I don't care what the audience says. This is gonna be part 1 of our conversation with you, because this has just been so lovely to learn from you, and to kind of just hear about your perspectives on things. It's just so lovely.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm learning from you guys too. This is so enjoyable.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Monica, for joining us. And I'm really
Yeah,
glad
thank
we
you
could
for
make this
having
work.
me.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Anytime. Anytime.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention?
I think that's all.
That's all for now. So thank you again. We will
Yeah,
see
thank you so
everyone
much.
next time for Jiggle and
Yeah.
Juice's conversation with.
Yeah. Stay safe. Stay safe. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.